Back to another episode of Polytalks, and today we'll be discussing some recent environmental related news, which is that Joe Manchin, who of course you remember as a pivotal swing vote during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, has vowed to block a Biden lands nominee. And this makes the news, of course, because this is a rift between Joe Manchin and Joe Biden, which has occurred frequently over the past few years of Biden's presidency. And what we can see here is that many will be asking questions about why Manchin was able to block this nominee when it's clear that Democrats, plus the three independents that caucus with them, have a 51 to 49 majority in the US Senate, so they can afford one defection on a whole Senate vote, which means that if Joe Manchin decided to block this nominee, that wouldn't matter to Democrats because it would be a 50-50 vote and Vice President Kamala Harris could break the tie and confirm this nominee. However, the reason this is not possible, actually, is that as a concession to Joe Manchin, actually, he is on the Senate Natural Resources Committee, Energy and Natural Resources. He's the chairman, in fact. And what you notice about the composition here, based on the power sharing agreement, there are 10 basically Democrats or pseudo Democrats, and there are 9 Republicans, which actually means that yes, there was a majority in this committee, but it means that if Joe Manchin voted with the Republicans, this nominee could not advance past the committee. So that is actually an important point here, because it is simply a sign that even in the new Senate and Congress, Joe Manchin still has a major role, and a 51 seat Senate majority is not enough for Democrats to prevent him from having leverage over the rest of the Senate. And that is a key point as we begin to discuss if Democrats can get any other nominees confirmed, if the Supreme Court vacancy opens up, then we will see Manchin still has power in the U.S. Senate, and the 2022 U.S. Senate elections will be great for Democrats. They did not entirely erase the threat of Manchin and Sinema, and that is what's so critical, because the key political point here is that Joe Manchin still has a lot of leverage over Joe Biden despite the increased Democratic Senate majority. But the environmental point here is that Joe Manchin blocked this nominee because he disagreed with their policies and their refusal to decrease the price of, I believe, natural gas, or to decrease the gas fees. And this is another example of how Joe Manchin, especially on climate, tends to be quite opposed to the the mainstream Democratic Party, and that makes sense as his state is heavily coal and natural gas based. And it's simply another example of how Democrats, if they want to pass any kind of meaningful climate or environmental legislation, they need to get past the hurdle of these senators who, while they may vote for something like the American Rescue Plan, really don't have much allegiance to the Democratic Party when it comes to climate change and are still stuck in the past decades of coal and natural gas, even when it is clear the choice is to divest from these dirty fossil fuels and adopt renewable energy. But in Joe Manchin's eyes, that is not true, which means that Democrats will have to put up with him. He still has leverage, and especially on climate, things are looking peerless for Democrats if they cannot even pass a simple nominee past Joe Manchin based on their climate beliefs. So that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the future. Goodbye.